same thing here, even though it says something a little bit different. I want to talk about just backtesting in general. Like I said, we certainly want people to backtest as much as possible. Try to, test as many scenarios, replay, backtest, whatever you want to do. What we've seen earlier, what Zach was doing was just the replay process, but I'll go through the backtesting process here. There's a couple things, I guess two main things that, make all the difference in backtesting. And the first one is the integrity of your data, your chart data, whether your charts were built correctly, whether you have gaps in your data, whether the data was downloaded in the correct format, and whether you have the proper time ranges and have rolled over your charts properly. Those are all factors that affect the integrity of your data. So we want to address those. And then the other thing that's important is there's actually two back tests that are available for you to run within AT or Sierra charts. And so we may want to make sure you're running the right one. The way our program operates, if you run one of the back tests, it affects the entries in such a way that the program doesn't trade as it should, as we designed it, and it loses its effectiveness. So we don't want to run that back test, and I'll show you what that one is. We just want to run a standard back test, not the bar-based back test. So, but to start out, going back to the data integrity, there's a few things we want you to check on first. And if we show you these things in these settings, and if your settings aren't correct and you have to change some things, then what you're going to have to do is completely delete and reload all your chart data in order to build your charts again fresh with the correct type of data. So again, type in your questions. If anybody has anything they want to ask, let us know, and I'll stop. So first thing we want to check, like I said, up here in the top left corner, everybody can see my mouse. I'll try to move it slowly. Sierra chart 976, that's a version of Sierra chart I'm using. It's important to keep your AT charts or your Sierra chart updated. There are updates that these guys at Sierra chart make almost daily, and a lot of them can affect how your program runs and some of the features that you have available. In order to download to the current version, go to the help menu and just download current version. That's the way you can keep up with newer versions of Sierra chart. Our program files now have actually been preloaded. Some of you may have noticed in Sierra and AT charts. If you update to version 975 or higher, program files are in there, so we don't have to send them out anymore. So make sure you're keeping up with that as far as Sierra chart, the updates go. The next thing we want to do is make sure we're downloading our data in TIC format. And so where we go to set that is under the File menu, under Data Trade Service Settings. So we click on that. If you have a shortcut button up here in your header, it looks like this, DTS. That brings up your Data Trade Service Settings. So that brings up this window. You see all of your connection details, everything, your account information. But right here in this intraday data storage time unit, you have several options there, and a lot of brokers keep that on 2 seconds. I think in Sierra chart it defaults to 2 seconds. You want to make sure you have selected one TIC. We want to download our data in TIC format. So check our data format there. Like I said, if yours is set to seconds or minutes and you just changed it to ticks, then you're going to have to reload. You're going to need to reload all your chart data in order to rebuild your chart with TIC data. So another thing to point out on the screen is right here in the center, max historical intraday days to download. If you're wanting to build a chart book that's a year long, then you need to accommodate that much time in this space here. So as it stands now, if I wanted to build a chart book, say for oil that was a year long, the chart would only load 180 days of data at this point because that's what I have it set at. So make sure you have your date range or your days to download adequate to cover the test you want to run. So those are two things there: time storage in one TIC and days to download to pay attention to. That's under Data Trade Service Settings under the File menu. that's the first thing you want to check. And like I said, if you had to change that, or if it wasn't set to one tick, in order to rebuild your charts with the proper format, you need to go to the edit button. Of course, first select the chart you want to clear and rebuild. Go to edit, and then you want to delete all data and download. And then once you click that, it's going to ask you to confirm yes, you want to do that. If, like I said, if you want to rebuild your charts with new data, then that's the option you want to use. I'm not going to click it because we've only got here the current contract of oil, so I don't need to rebuild anything. But like I said, if your chart data is not set in tick format, or you have not rolled over your charts from contract to contract sequentially, then we need to start over, and you do that right there, delete all data and download. So so let's pretend that everything is fine now. We're comfortable with our chart data. Like I said, I'm only looking at this chart only consists of the current contract, and the way to check on that is when you're looking at your chart, you can either go to chart settings, or you can hit F5 here, as you can see. So I'm just going to hit F5. It brings up the chart settings for this active chart that we're on, CLM3 610 tick. And so you see your date range in here. This is the date range of the chart file. So from February 3rd to May 17th. I'm telling it to load 90 days on this particular chart. This is a chart I have used for trading, so I don't generally like to load a ton of days on a chart that I trade off of, because it will slow down your processing. If you have a little slower computer like I do, then it can affect how your charts load. And so I keep that trimmed down. But just for the sake of explaining this, like I say, your date range is defined here. So from 2/3 to 5/17 is what this is. So I'm going to get out of this chart settings menu. So I'm assuming our charts start at 2/3. So I'm thinking, if I run a back test, I could get a back test for February, March, and April, beginning of May. Well, let's look back and see. So what we want to do is, even though your chart show that date range, scroll back all the way to the beginning of your chart. Use this little scroll bar down here. I think you can use, I think it's the home key on your keyboard. Will take you all the way to the beginning. So even though it says our chart setting says we start on February 3rd, if you look, I've moved all the way back. I see 217, 220, 221. See how compressed this data is? There's no, we're looking at a 610 tick, so we should see, 100 candles in each one of these days at least. So the fact that this is so compressed tells me that this data is, is not good. It's not drawing data back this early that's consistent data. So what we want to do is just kind of scroll forward and look to see where our data starts to, take a better shape, starts to open up. You can see now here at 312, we start to see some time frames pop in here. You're seeing a few more candles. You do see some entry candles. I've got the study off right now, but we're showing some entry candles. However, this data is so, again, compressed. These would not be viable trades that I would want to consider data on if I ran a back test. So we want to continue to move forward in the chart until we start seeing things open up. Now here, compare 315 over here in the corner. Just this large here to 318. Now we're seeing price really open up, or the chart, the chart drawings opening up. So I'd say around 318 or so is where we start getting better data to pull from. And then as we continue to move, see now 319 just takes up the whole page. So even 318 was a little compressed. So that's it's good for you to, even though your chart, like I said, says that we started February 1st, if you just automatically start a back test right there, you're going to include some data that may not be good data. So it's good to go back and just to kind of get an idea in your head of when your data starts looking clean. I'm going to say it's around the last week of March for us on this chart here. And I'm going to hit the end key. That'll take us back all the way to the end of the chart. So we've looked at our data. We see that our chart doesn't really start until the last week of March. We don't get good data. So if we wanted to run start a back test now, when you run a back test, the back test runs for the entire date range of the chart file. So you're going to, if we were to run the back test, we would see some trades back on 221 or 222, whatever. And they would probably be really irregular. They may happen at odd times, or you may see that you're in a trade for 3 days or something like that. And so you can see anomalies in the data if your actual chart data is, I won't say corrupted, but just incomplete, not in the best format that it could be. So let's see here. So we scan back. Again, the back test is going to run for the entire date range of the chart. And so what we can do is once the back test runs, even though that data in February, we don't want to look at that, we can filter that data out through some of the features of the trade activity log. So I'll show you that in a second. The next thing, besides the type of data and looking at your chart ranges and getting those set, things like that, is the rollover consistency of your charts. Now, if you want to build, we're just looking at the current contract for oil on this chart, like I said, so there's been no rollovers that I've done on this chart. But if you say we wanted to build a full year of an oil chart, in order to do that, you would have to select the starting month you want to start at, and then build your chart and roll over the chart in sequence from contract to contract. So I'll give an example. If we wanted to build a year's worth of an oil chart going back to this current contract last year, what you could do, once you get your data settings all, in tick data and your date range set there, what you could do is just hit F5 for your chart settings, change your symbol here. We would just change that to CLM2. So we'd be pulling, a contract from a year ago. I'm not going to do it, but you would hit apply, and OK, it would pull the contract information, and then it would give you a symbol error, symbol not valid or symbol not found or something like that, because it's an old symbol, and it asks you if you want to roll over. And so you would, at that point, you would roll over your chart. So to give you an example of what the rollover process looks like, I'm going to go to chart, perform future symbol rollover. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to show you. So this gives you the current symbol and what the new symbol will be once the rollover is complete. So we would start at CLM2, and we would want to roll over from CLM2 to CLN2 to CLQ2 to CLU2. You have to roll over each contract in sequence. And each time you roll over, you want to join your previous data. Again, if you're going to build a chart book that, say, goes back a year, then you want to include at least a year. So you want to include that. And then again here, you want to change this output storage unit to ticks. You have to do this on every rollover. And like I said, it has to be done in sequence, one by one. You cannot, to build a good chart data, you cannot skip contracts. So say you wanted to take a shortcut. You don't want to sit here for 2 days while your charts are rolling over and building this big chart book. And you think you're going to take a shortcut and go from CLM2 and just roll over direct to CLM3. And it's just going to roll over everything in between. Even though it will let you do that, Sierra Chart will allow you to do that. If you do that and you scroll back and start looking at your data, you will see gaps all over the place. You'll have a week missing here. You may have a month gone here. You're going to see data issues if you do not roll over your charts in sequence one by one. So this is an important step too. If you're trying to do anything beyond just doing a back test on the current symbol, you really need to follow this process to make sure your rollovers are consistent. Any questions so far on that? We covered the intraday storage units, changing that to tick. We covered scale range, or covering the date range, on your charts. The back test is going to test that entire date range, and then you can manipulate that data through the trade activity log, which I'll show you here in a second. And then we have to make sure our rollover process is done consistently and like I say, rollover from contract to contract in sequence. So I'm going to close this out. Pat asks, is that referred to out of order timestamps? Yeah, I believe that does. When you see that error, that means that maybe you have rolled over one contract was in second format and another, the contract you just created or you just rolled over, you changed it to tick format. So there's a out of order timestamp between those two contracts. So yeah, if you're seeing that, I would go to the edit menu, do that delete and download all again, or whatever it is, to download all or delete all and download, and start over, and make sure you're building your charts in tick format one by one. So yeah, pay attention to that message log. It'll give you indications of what, some things that may be going on. You can find your message log. For some reason, it's under the window tab, show hide message log. If you click that, you'll be able to see it if you don't already. So we've covered the tick format. We've covered the rollover. Now let's get into the actual back test and the trade activity log. So I could run a back test, but it'll probably take about 15 minutes or so to run just on this current contract. So we don't have to actually do that, but I could show you the actual process. So you've gone through everything. You've got your chart ready. As far as your chart data is good to go, you're happy with that. So now the next thing we want to do is apply the study. You want to use the on study during the back test, so it actually executes trades or simulated trades. So we want to apply that study, and then we want to go in and adjust our settings to run how we want it to run for the back test. So we're going to back test, let's say, the trial on. We want to select that study. You see it applied on the screen, trial on. Now you can right click and select your studies here, or you can hit F6 on the menu. It'll take you into this studies window right here. You see the trial version on is this chart study that's applied to the graph. We want to change the settings of that. These are the default settings that everybody gets when they first turn on the trial program. And again, it's not that we're recommending that these are the settings you're supposed to use for this market or anything like that. These are just kind of middle of the road settings that we picked out that would basically that would give you show entry candles when the study is applied. We didn't want people to turn the study on and not see anything, so we threw some some of the settings in there. Like I said, put them in a format that would show a few entries here and there, but these are pretty conservative overall, I would say, with the exception of the disable entries there. These other settings are fairly conservative. So you definitely want to adjust these. So pick whatever you want. If you want to run a 24-hour back test, or you want the program to run for 24 hours a day in the back test, then you'd leave it as is. Although I will say that after the markets close and you go from kind of trading on a tick chart to trading on a minute chart, a lot of times that after hours trading off the tick chart in the back test doesn't look that great. It's not as good of a data. So what we take back tests on a 24-hour term, and then we kind of whittle those down into blocks that we look at in more detail. And most of the time what we found is that in the afternoons overnight when the volume drops, we tend to trade off a minute, 5-minute chart or something versus a tick chart. So your data that you may see on a back test that you run for 24 hours on a tick chart, the data in the evenings and overnight may skew things a little for you. So this is just something to pay attention to. So we want to enter our risk. Like I said, we happen to be talking about oil, so I'm going to enter some settings here that we use on oil. Risk for oil, I typically like about a 20, so we'll keep that at 20. Momentum settings in oil, I tend to be a little conservative in my oil settings typically, maybe not as conservative as what you're seeing on the screen here, but as far as momentum goes, I would, let's run that on 15. Or I'll tell you what, let's just run momentum and strength on 13 each. So 13 periods each for momentum and strength. Risk factor is 20. Disable program, if you want this to be realistic and you realistically only, you want the program to cut off after it hits, say, $200, then you should enter $200. If you want to open up the program to let it run a little more aggressively just for back testing purposes, then you should, adjust these accordingly. You may put them on $400 or $350 or, whatever. Kind of, yeah, get them out of the way a little bit so they're not interfering with the testing of the program. So that's completely up to you, as far as what you want to set these to. And then stop losses, break-even triggers. In oil, I typically run my stop at about 13 ticks. And my trigger and offset in oil, I like to run about 10 to 1. Sometimes I do 12 to 2. It just depends. And then target, we like to put, as we said, at least a 3 to 1 ratio risk to reward. So 40 or 50, whatever you want to do. So you've now set all your settings for what you want the test to be run on. So we're going to click OK here. And then you've changed the settings, so you want to save them. Save all, yes. And then I always click apply and OK. And so now we still see the trial on, the study is applied, but it's applied now based on the settings that we selected earlier. So, in fact, let me change. I am going to change the time settings. So we'll set this to start running at, I'm on Pacific time out here, so I'm going to start it at 5 a.m. And we'll run it to noon or 1 o'clock, 12:59. So again, we changed them, so we save all. Apply and OK. I didn't happen to change anything on the screen here, but if we scroll back, you wouldn't see entries now overnight, or you'd only see them from 5 a.m. to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we've chosen our settings on the study that we want to back test. And so the next thing to do is to start the back test. Again, we have the study applied under the settings that we want. So we're ready to start. We go to the trade menu is where you're going to find the 2 back tests that are available to run. They're down here. This is where I talk about there's 2 different back tests, and there's only one that is the correct one. It is the second one here on the drop-down menu, Auto Trade System Replay Back Test. That's the standard back test that uses tick data to back test. So that is the test we want to run. We do not want to use bar-based back tests, because what bar-based back test does, if any of you, some of you probably know, that only calculates entries at the bar close. So since our program, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Our program looks for entries, in this case, this short here, right below the Donchian channel here. So we want our back test to calculate an entry, where all the conditions were met up here around 95.51. If you run a bar-based back test, the system won't calculate an entry until the closing point down here at 95.43. So in this case, it could be a 7-8 tick difference. So that's why you do not want to use bar-based back tests. We want those entries calculated as close to our true entry point as possible. So again, there's 2 back tests available. We want to use the second one. So we click on this back test. It's going to ask you to confirm that you want to run the back test, that you want to clear all your previous back testing data. Yes, we do. So you'll answer yes to that. And as soon as you do, the back test will actually start. It looks similar to the replay mode that Zach was showing earlier, although back testing operates at a much higher speed. So the charts, it's not easy to watch a back test as it's going, because the charts get real choppy. They'll jump from one day to the next day, and you won't necessarily be able to keep track of what it's doing visually on the screen. So you can slow down the speed of the back test. That helps, but you still do to get a jumping effect in any back test, just because that's just the way it operates. Sierra Chart has a section on backtesting in their documentation on their website, and you can read pretty much everything we've gone over here, there. Well, I'm also going to be sending out an email that kind of has 6 tips to cover, for accurate backtesting, just to help as a guide too. Because like I said, we know everybody wants to test the system and see how it works under their conditions. So again, choose the auto trade system replay backtest. And I'm not going to do it because it would, I don't want to actually run the back test, so I'm going to skip that. And now let's just pretend that the back test is finished running. You're going to see, if you scroll back through the charts, where there's entry candles, you should see, had the back test run, you would see little entry markers and evidence of trades that had gone on. It's a good way that Zach and I like to scan back after we've done a back test and see how the program traded. See if it's choosing the entries that we like based on the time scale we're looking at. Is it trading? Is it doing anything it shouldn't do? If so, why? Do we have bad data? What's going on? Is it trading how we want it to? Is maybe our momentum and strength too conservative, and we're missing some trade entries that we want to take? So you'll be able to see that by scrolling back and looking at the charts, and kind of breaking down trade by trade. You can also go to review your data up to trade and select the trade activity log, and that's going to log everything that would have been recorded in the back test. Like I said, I didn't run one, so ours is empty here. But when you open this activity log, you want to make sure that you're looking at the replay backtest option. Okay, non-simulated is live trading. Simulated is replay or just sim mode. I'm sorry, not replay, but just anything you've done in sim mode is going to be under simulated. Replay backtest is, of course, replays or backtests, and then all simulated is your simulated trades and replays and backtests. So we just want to look at backtest data. So just choose replay backtest. Again, after you run one, you'll see information down here. Here's where you can adjust your date range. We saw that our data didn't really start coming around and looking good until the last week of March. So even though our chart started back at the beginning of February, we don't want to include any of that data in our log that we actually look at. So we'll choose a date on here. Let's just choose April 1st to start. And then you can either run the range through today by clicking that, or you can set an end date, say if you just want to look at the month of April. And then you click apply, and that will change, all your statistics here based on the range you've provided up here. The trade statistics is a good place to see an overall summary of your trades. A lot of good information in here. So you see your percent profitability. Something Zach and I really pay attention to was your average winning trade amount and average losing trade amount. Having a percent profitability or percent winning trades, is great in a program. But you can, have a program or you can trade and win 60% of your trades and still lose money. So average winning trade, average losing trade is something we like to keep an eye on. Again, other information down here. They've added a few things in some recent updates. I think so. Some of your activity log may not look like mine, but again, they changed this activity log quite a bit in their updates. So under the trade stats is your summary. Then, like I said, had we run a back test, click on this trades tab, your individual trades would be listed here. So you'd see them, individually with several different, categories to sort them by. And then another good tab here is this period trade stats. That allows you to come up here and change this. You can look at trades based on half hour a day, hour a day, day of the week, your daily trades, weekly trades, monthly. So it's another good way to sort data up here. And then if you are familiar with spreadsheet programs like Excel, you can copy and paste your activity log into Excel so you can sort and play with your data a little more in Excel. And you would just do edit, copy all, and then just paste into Excel. It copies anything that's on the screen. So that's your trade activity log. Like I said, without running a back test, there's no data to look at here, but that's going to be how you get all your information from your back test. So you get your information from your back test. You want to change some settings. You want to run another one, do it again. Make sure that you either copy and paste your trade activity log into a spreadsheet or something, or that you write down your stats and keep track of how things are going, because the next test you run will erase all that data that you just recorded there. So anytime you run a new back test, you're going to erase the previous data. So like I said, just make sure you've copied that to something else, or at least written it down, or acknowledged it, because if you try to go back and get it, it's gone. So
it'll be very time consuming.
Yeah. If you want to clear out any of your trade data, you can always do clear trade simulation orders and data. That will also clear your trade activity log. So, if you don't want to do that, be careful. But if you ran a back test, you're seeing a bunch of entries all over the place, and there's, you want to clean things up before your next test, you can just clear trade sim orders and data, yes. And it'll clear, you'll still see the entry candles, you just won't see the actual trade markers from the back test. So I think that wasn't too brief, but that covers most of that's all I can think of. Is we, Zach and I have probably done 1,000 back tests each over the last couple of years, but those are the major things you want to look out for. Like I said, the integrity of your data is extremely important. It's the old thing, it's the old adage, garbage in, garbage out. If your charts are garbage to begin with, your data is going to be garbage that you're trying to look at. So you got to make sure your data is loaded properly and your charts are complete. And then again, make sure you run the right back test so you get more accurate results. John, you're welcome. No problem. I'll send out this email as soon as I finish it. I started working on it yesterday for back testing tips, and it's just kind of what we just went through, just in a single email. So I'll send that out as soon as I get it finished, and we'll may do another class at some point next week on back testing, because it seems like a lot of interest in it.
Right. I did record this, so we do have it, so we can finally make a good video. We've had some difficulties trying to get it recorded right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
This one should be good.
These webinars, and we end up with video, no audio, or audio, no video, whatever. But I think we got it figured out this time. So we will post this so you guys can access it off the website, just as a review.
A review guide, yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions, back testing or otherwise, that we can touch on? Again, thank everybody for taking the time to sit with us through this. I know it's taken a few hours. We like to try to do some of these on Saturdays just to catch a group, of people that may not be able to meet with us in the mornings during the week. So we'll continue to do these on Saturdays. We may alternate weekends or something. But we try to mix up these times on some of these webinars just to, be flexible with people. So we appreciate you joining us. If we didn't get to anything, or still, not sure about something, please, send us an email or give us a call.